Hello everyone. In this video I will be talking about my top 10 film directors of all time. This is my own personal list. Hopefully there will be some directors on this list that you agree with, but there are obviously going to be some directors who you don't agree with as well, which is absolutely fine. Everyone's opinion is different, but this is my own personal list. It's not a definitive list of the best directors. I don't pretend to be an expert. This list is put together really by my taste in films and how these directors approach their films, what films they are, the director's approach to filmmaking, their techniques and things like that. Really how much enjoyment I get out of their films and, well, from their directing style, I suppose. So I'll start off the list at number 10. So number 10 on this list is Frank Capra. Yes, so Frank Capra, most of his best films were back in the day in the 1930s and 1940s, real Depression era director. Lots of films have great sort of warm messages, very sentimental, almost a bit too sentimental for some. So some of the examples are obviously behind me. It's a Wonderful Life, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. It's also ones like You Can't Take It With You, Mr. Deeds Goes to Town. They tend to be quite nice, family-friendly films with nice messages, sometimes slightly darker in spots, but I just find them real nice escapism, real warm, sort of family-friendly, real films with nice values and nice messages. So number 9 on my list is Howard Hawks. So he's a director from a similar era to Frank Capra actually. His films are often known for some fast-talking dialogue and quite sort of quick-moving plots. So ones like The Big Sleep with Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall, quite a complicated film, but one you have to pay attention to piece everything together. He also directed To Have and Have Not, which is another Bogart and Bacall film. But one of his big sort of famous early films was the 1932 version of Scarface, which I have behind me, which was very violent for its time, quite controversial in terms of showing this criminal. But yeah, his films, I find them very entertaining, really excellent dialogue, excellently written scripts, and I really do get a lot of entertainment out of his films, which is why he's number 9 on my list. So number 8 on my list is John Huston. So he's actually another director that did quite a few films with Humphrey Bogart, quite a lot. One of the most notable ones is The African Queen with Bogart and Katharine Hepburn, which is a beautiful movie and absolute classic. But my favourite of his films has to be The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, which I have behind me. That's an absolute stunning film. It's a fantastic story, very entertaining. The story of it being set in a desert with looking for gold. Just absolutely great fun. And actually John Huston actually went on later to be an actor. He did go on to star in a few films. He starred in Chinatown alongside Jack Nicholson, and he was absolutely brilliant in that. So as well as being an excellent director from back in the day, he was also a fantastic actor as well. So yeah, John Huston, and yes, also directed The Maltese Falcon as well, which I have behind me. Superb film. So excellent director. So number 7 on my list is Steven Spielberg. So Spielberg, probably the most famous film director in the world. He's been going for such a long time. And he started off with doing these big blockbuster films, ones like Jaws, E.T., Jurassic Park. A lot of his films, they were very popular, they made lots of money, and as such he's really become a household name, perhaps really invented the modern blockbuster. However, some of his later films are a lot more personal, ones like Schindler's List, Saving Private Ryan. He's just one of those directors who knows how to direct a film. He knows how to get people to watch his films. And I think probably out of all the directors that are on this list, is probably the director who I've seen the most films of. I will say that I don't think all of his films are great. There are some which I don't like quite as much, but nevertheless he has directed some absolute classics, and yeah, for absolute good reason, he's a brilliant director. So yeah, that is why he is number 7 on my list. So number 6 on my list is Martin Scorsese. So Scorsese being one of those new Hollywood directors, along with directors like Robert Altman and Peter Bogdanovich, really hitting his stride in the 1970s with excellent films like Taxi Driver and Mean Streets, real gritty, character-driven films. One of those directors known for his excess of violence and bad language. So his films certainly don't appeal to everybody, but I think he's just fantastic about he's just fantastic at directing films about characters with real depth to them, real emotion, and just knowing how to portray this on screen, particularly films like Raging Bull and Goodfellas, showing the characters' emotional struggles. Some of his films can be slightly depressing at times, but he knows how to hit those notes. He knows how to get a reaction out of audiences, which is why he is number 6 on my list. So number 5 on my list is John Ford. So John Ford is a director best known for doing westerns, quite a lot of them with John Wayne, and I've been watching quite a few of his films recently. I've been watching the Capra trilogy, Fort Apache, She Wore a Yellow Ribbon, and Rio Grande. But John Ford pretty much invented the classic western, I think, particularly with films like Stagecoach, which are absolutely fantastic. But really, I think his best western is The Searchers, John Wayne, which I have behind me. Beautiful cinematography, excellent story, excellent character-driven film. But he has also directed other great dramas, most notably The Grapes of Wrath with Henry Fonda, which is obviously a classic story. And in this film, it's absolutely beautiful. You absolutely had to check it out. So yes, John Ford, absolutely superb director, which is why he makes number 5 on my list. So at number 4 on the list, we have David Lean. So David Lean was an English director, and he started off doing films like Brief Encounter and Great Expectations, which are both fantastic. But he really hit his stride in the 50s and 60s, where he did these fantastic epics. So ones like The Bridge on the River Kwai and Lawrence of Arabia and Dr. Zhivago. Films I absolutely love. Films with beautiful cinematography, and yes, they may all have big epic run times, which not everybody may have the patience for, but I really have great appreciation for, and he was such a fantastic director. He's brilliant at doing these kinds of films, and actually Lawrence of Arabia and Bridge on the River Kwai are 2 of my favourite films of all time, so this is why he's so high up on my list. I absolutely love David Lean as a director and think he is fantastic, which is why he is number 4 on my list. So at number 3 on my list, we have Billy Wilder. So Billy Wilder, I think, is a very diverse director. So he's done some very entertaining, very light-hearted movies, ones like Some Like It Hot and The Apartment, just very funny films with great characters and very funny dialogue, funny one-liners. But he's also done some slightly darker films, ones like Ace in the Hole and The Lost Weekend, which is about an alcoholic, which is an excellent movie. He knows how to do films with good messages. I think possibly my favourite film of his, though, is Double Indemnity, which I have behind me, an excellent film noir with Fred MacMurray and Barbara Stanwyck. Excellent 1940s movies, real gripping story, and yes, he's done so many great films, and there's still lots of films I haven't seen, which I am looking forward to checking out. So yeah, this is why Billy Wilder is number 3 on my list. So coming in at number 2, we have Alfred Hitchcock, the master of suspense. So Hitchcock directed so many great films, and I'm still discovering so many more of his films. I actually recently watched 2 of his films, which are The Wrong Man and Suspicion, which, although not some of his best films, are still absolutely fantastic. You don't normally see those films on his best of lists, but they're still excellent, tension-filled, gripping films with plots that sometimes go in a direction that you don't expect. And even some of his earlier films, like The 39 Steps, for instance, which, although is very dated now, still an absolute joy to watch, and still in many ways has actually aged extremely well, even given its age. But really, if I was to list his best films, I could go on forever, but you get ones like Rear Window, North by Northwest. But in my opinion, his 2 best films are the ones behind me, which are Psycho and Vertigo, which are absolute timeless classics. And still to this day, you can just thrill an audience and just put people on the edge of their seats. He really was an absolute genius at doing this. and yeah, there's a good reason why he is still well known today, is because his films are absolutely timeless, which is why Alfred Hitchcock is number 2 on my list. So number 1 on my list is Stanley Kubrick. So Stanley Kubrick actually only ever directed 13 films, which for a director is not a great amount, and there are still actually 2 of his films that I haven't seen yet, which are Lolita and Eyes Wide Shut, but I've seen all of his other films, and I think I love pretty much all of his films except perhaps his first one, which was called Fear and Desire, which I thought was okay. I didn't think it was a terrible film, but just not as good as the rest. And even some of his earlier ones like Killer's Kiss and The Killing are great films, but really, eventually, he really started to hit his stride with films like Paths of Glory and Spartacus, and some of his later films, absolutely masterpieces. The Shining is one of the greatest horror movies ever made. Barry Lyndon, what a gorgeous film that is. And obviously, my favourite film of his is 2001: A Space Odyssey, which I can watch time and time again. His films are certainly not going to appeal to everyone. They're real acquired taste, and I have to admit, there are some of his films which, the first time I watched, I didn't quite understand. But upon rewatch, I did gain a greater appreciation for, and especially with something like A Clockwork Orange, which is a really weird, really bizarre movie, but it's one that gets me watching it again and again. I just want to go back and rewatch it time after time. And even something like Full Metal Jacket as well, very much a story of 2 halves, but it just leaves a mark there that makes you remember the film. And Stanley Kubrick is known for doing particularly long takes, doing films with great cinematography, and I do like to think of Kubrick as more of a director who's more about quality than quantity, since he often left quite a big gap between doing his films and didn't do a great number of them, certainly compared to a lot of the other directors on this list, ones like Steven Spielberg. But yeah, I mean, Stanley Kubrick, a director I have great appreciation for, which is why he is my number 1 favourite film director of all time. So there we go, everybody. So that is my list of the top 10 film directors. I tried to get through them fairly quickly and not talk about them for too long, because I know not everybody wants to sit and listen to a really long video of some guy rambling on about film directors. But there we go, that's my top 10 list. So what do you guys think? I'd love to know your opinions. Do you agree with my number 1 pick? Do you agree with my top 10 list? Are there any you would put higher or lower on the list? Are there any you shouldn't think be on my list at all? Or are there some great directors who I have missed out and who I need to check out more? Remember, this is obviously my top 10 list, so there are lots of great directors who I haven't seen many films from. Though I hope to continue watching films, hope to discover more directors, and who knows, maybe in years to come I'll put together a new top 10 list with many different directors on there. We shall see. But anyway, I'd like to thank all of you very much for watching. I hope you all have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Take care.